Hello there and welcome to STYLIve. Our special guest today is Professor Emeritus of Office of Ireland Studies at the University of Arizona and President of AZ-CIA and member of various prestigious societies in the agricultural field, and most of all is well known for being the researcher who discovered chia as a crop which is very useful for our health. So I would like to introduce to you Dr. Wayne Coates. Hi doctor, how are you?
I'm fine, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk with you about chia.
You are very welcome. And listen, I would like to start actually talking a bit about your career. How did you begin?
Oh, I actually I'm Canadian. I grew up on a farm in Canada, so I was very interested in agriculture from the beginning, and that's what got me involved at the university. I studied agriculture initially and then went into agricultural engineering, so it's an agricultural background.
Listen, talking actually about chia, how did you start researching about this crop, and can you tell me a bit about the history?
Yeah, for sure. We really started, it was a project in the northwest of Argentina. It was called the Northwestern Argentina Regional Project. And what we were doing was looking for alternative crops to help the growers there. And we planted a bunch of different seeds to see how they would grow and how they would produce and, you know, whether they would do well in the region. And chia was just one of them. It wasn't like that was the only one we planted. And as we saw how well it grew generally in the region, we then started to work more with it to learn how to grow it commercially and also how it could be used to benefit all of us. And that's kind of the start of the whole thing.
Mhm.
If you want to talk about the history, it's really interesting because it was one of the main crops of the Aztecs. On number 3, in fact, they had corn, beans, chia, and amaranth. And the Aztecs knew about this crop. They knew how beneficial it was. They used it as a general food, but they used it as medicines. They used it, fed their animals, and they also used it in the religious ceremonies with offerings to the gods. One of the keys, I think, is to say how important it was to them. Every conquered nation had to pay tributes to the rulers of the Aztecs. And one of the big tributes that was made that they had to pay was in chia. So they knew the value of this.
I've seen actually a video on your YouTube channel where there are some references about an ancient code actually, or like a Spanish code, right?
Right, the codices. They're called the codices, and what the friars, when the Spanish came and conquered the Aztecs, they brought friars with them. The friars wrote these about 500 years ago, actually. And in those codices, which there's some of them in different countries that have been saved, a lot were destroyed. We went back to them and looked at them to see what they documented about the Aztecs in general, how they lived and everything else. But there was a lot of references in there about the chia and how they used it. And that's why we know what the Aztecs used it for, generally speaking.
Chia is considered to be actually a superfood, which is very rich in antioxidants, omega-3, proteins, and fibers. Can you tell us which kind of advantages we have for our health by consuming chia?
Yes, for sure. If you take the omega-3s and the fiber together, we know that omega-3s and fiber are heart-healthy components. They're good for supporting or preventing coronary heart disease. So those two components are really heart healthy. If you take the omega-3 and the antioxidants, they're anti-inflammatory, which means joint pain and some of these things can be helped because of the combination of those two things. So it's really, those are the key parts. Now the protein, it is a very high quality protein. It rates over 100. There are proteins that are low in some of the amino acids, which aren't good quality. This is very good, and it's over 20%. Wheat is normally 14%, so it's a high quality protein. But those are some of the key things that chia can do. If you look at some other aspects, the fiber in particular, it's a very good source of insoluble and soluble. Soluble means if you put it in a liquid of some kind, you'll see a gel form. That's the soluble fiber coming out. And what that really is, then, it's good from the standpoint of lessening glycemic spikes. In other words, when you eat it, it slows your digestion down. Because in essence, if you can think of it this way, that gel forms in your stomach, sort of coats everything that's there, and slows down the digestion. And that's why diabetics are having some very good results consuming it. Also, because it swells, this soluble fiber comes out, it'll have actually absorbed 7 to 9 times its weight in liquid. It swells. It gives you this feeling of being full, plus later in the day, because it slowed your digestion, a number of people have had more energy later in the day. So there's a number of things that the fiber can actually do for individuals.
So it's a kind of, release in energy that can actually be like throughout the day, right?
Exactly, that's what it does. It slows the digestion. So rather than, if you eat a chocolate bar, for example, you get what's called a sugar high or a glycemic spike, because it immediately goes into your stomach, it's absorbed, and you get all this energy, but it goes away quick. Whereas the soluble fiber essentially slows that process down, and that's why later in the day people have had more energy. Or if you talk about the running world, a lot of runners are eating it now, and they're finding they have more energy later in their runs. It's the same effect.
Very good. And listen, what is functional food, and which differences there are between chia, flax seeds, or other seeds?
Well, a functional food really means it serves some functions in the body. So when we talk about chia, you got the omega-3, you got the fiber and everything else. Now, the easiest way to understand the difference between flaxseed and chia seed, in terms of general composition, they're similar omega-3 content, so on. But the big difference is flaxseed is protected, the hard seed coat protects the oil, the omega-3, from oxidizing, in other words, from going rancid. So that's the difference. Chia is protected by the natural antioxidants, so it has a very soft seed coat. Flaxseed, you need to grind it, cook it, sprout it, somehow open that seed coat, because if you don't, it'll just pass through your body. Chia, on the other hand, you don't have to. You can eat the whole seed. Not saying every single seed and that it will be totally digested, but essentially it will be. So it makes it much easier to use. And if you do want it ground, the natural antioxidants keep it stable, shelf stable. Like we have a milled version of it we're selling, and it's about a year on the countertop. Whereas flaxseed, they often say, the people that are selling it say, you need to grind fresh every day and you need to refrigerate it. In the case of chia, you don't need to refrigerate the whole seed, the milled seed, any form of it. So it's kind of an easier product to use. And it's got the antioxidants. That's a key difference.
Listen, what is actually the difference between white chia and black chia?
Really, there's very little difference. The black chia tends to have a little more antioxidants. That's just like any dark fruit, say blueberries versus white grapes. So it has a little more of the antioxidants. But in other components, there's essentially no difference. And really, it's a cosmetic thing. In other words, if you were going to make white bread and wanted to put chia in it, you'd want to use the white seed. If it's a whole grain, use the black. And the black is cheaper. It's in a larger supply right now. It's more plentiful. So really, that's the key to it. And a funny thing is, one of our customers one time said, why don't you have white? And I said, well, why do you want white? And he says, because if it sticks in my teeth, you don't see it. So, I mean, and seriously, that's as good a reason as anything to have the white, okay? There's otherwise, and the same question between the white, the black, and the milled, which is, what do you prefer? It's strictly consumer preference.
Absolutely. And listen, how could we integrate easily chia seeds into our daily diet?
And that's another beauty of chia versus flax. It essentially has no flavor. Some people say a little nutty or a sesame flavor, but essentially no flavor. So you can add it to anything without changing the flavor. Like we like to sprinkle it on our salad like you would sunflower seeds, okay? You can just put it in you can put it in water, put it in orange juice, put it in anything and drink it down, whole or milled, whatever you prefer. Add it to yogurt. Again, the same thing. We have customers that put it on their ice cream and they eat it that way because you got a little seed, because often ice cream is served with nuts or seeds of some type.
That's right.
It's the same thing. Yeah. So it's really easy. The bottom line is to add it to anything that you like to normally eat. And so it makes it really very easy to consume.
And listen, do you actually need to soak chia or millet?
No, and that's a misconception. You can soak it. If you soak it and make this gel, the gel is a soluble fiber. Yeah, some people like it that way. They prefer it over the whole seeds. Other people just can't stand looking at that gel and don't want to eat it. So that's, again, consumer preference. Whatever you like, consume it that way. The gel you can actually use, however, to replace like eggs in baking, because it's like the same kind of a consistency, or it'll replaces some of the saturated fat. So that's some way to use the gel. As for milling, again, it's consumer preference. I prefer the whole seeds, but if you want the milled, one advantage with the milled might be with children. If the children see the seeds, they go, I don't want to eat it, it's got seeds. The milled would be easier for the parents to add to things and the kids really wouldn't know. And so really that's it. Whatever you like.